Part 1. The year was 2378, and humanity had finally reached the stars. For centuries, people dreamed of exploring the vastness of space, of finding new worlds, and meeting alien civilizations. Now, those dreams were a reality. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. Humans had spread across dozens of planets, establishing colonies, building cities among the stars, and creating a federation that stretched light years across the galaxy. But with this growth came challenges that would soon test humanity's courage, resolve, and very survival. Commander Jack Harper stood on the observation deck of the human flagship, the USS Vanguard. He gazed out at the swirling nebula outside, its colors shimmering like an artist's palette. It was beautiful, but he felt no peace. Something weighed heavily on his mind. In just a few hours, he and his team would step onto the planet Xylo 7 to meet with the Zorathians, one of the most mysterious and powerful alien races in the galaxy. The Zorathians rarely spoke to outsiders, let alone invited them into their territory. This meeting was unprecedented and dangerous. Jack turned away from the window and looked at the woman seated nearby. Ambassador Laura Bennett was reviewing her notes on a tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was calm, professional, and sharp-witted. Exactly the kind of person you wanted representing humanity in such a delicate situation. Still, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Why had the Zorathians called for this summit? What did they want? Laura, Jack said, breaking the silence. Do you really think they're going to listen to us? Laura glanced up, her green eyes steady. We have to believe they will, Jack. If we don't try, then what's the point of all this? She gestured toward the stars beyond the viewport. We've come so far, built so much. We can't let fear stop us from trying to make things better. Jack nodded, though doubt lingered in his chest. He trusted Laura, always had. But diplomacy wasn't his strong suit. He was a soldier, trained to fight and protect. Negotiation felt unnatural to him, especially when dealing with beings as unpredictable as the Zorathians. From what little humanity knew about them, the Zorathians were fiercely territorial and distrusted outsiders. They had advanced technology far beyond anything humans possessed, and their motives were often unclear. Some even whispered that they might see humanity as a threat or worse, a nuisance. As the ship approached Xylo 7, Jack couldn't help but think about the stakes. Humanity's future depended on this mission. Over the past decade, tensions between humans and the Zorathians had been rising. There were rumors of skirmishes along the border of Zorathian space, unexplained attacks on human outposts, and whispers of aggressive expansion by the aliens. Many within Earth's military urged action, calling for preemptive strikes against the Zorathians before they became too powerful to challenge. But cooler heads prevailed, and President Daniel Hayes insisted on pursuing peace instead of war. Still, not everyone agreed with the president's decision. General Ryan Cole, head of Earth's armed forces, had argued passionately against sending a delegation to Xylo 7. They're playing games with us, he'd said during a private briefing. This isn't about peace, it's about power. They'll use these talks to buy time while they prepare for something bigger. Jack understood where Cole was coming from. The general had spent decades defending humanity's interests, and his instincts were usually spot on. But Jack also believed in giving diplomacy a chance. War should always be the last resort, not the first option. That's why he volunteered to lead the security detail for the delegation. If things went south, he intended to make sure Laura and the others made it back alive. When the Vanguard entered orbit around Xylo 7, Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The planet below was unlike any he'd ever seen. Its surface glowed faintly, covered in sprawling cities, made of crystalline structures that refracted light like prisms. Towering spires reached toward the sky, pulsating with energy. It was both breathtaking and intimidating, a reminder of how small humanity truly was, compared to some of the older civilizations in the galaxy. The landing process was smooth, almost eerily so. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Jack noticed that there were no visible defenses, no signs of hostility. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. He exchanged a glance with Laura, who gave him a reassuring smile, though he could tell she was nervous too. Once they touched down, the group disembarked and was immediately greeted by a contingent of Zorathian guards. The aliens were tall and slender, their skin shimmering with iridescent hues that shifted depending on the angle of the light. Their large almond-shaped eyes regarded the humans with cold detachment. Jack tightened his grip on his weapon, though he kept it holstered. Any sudden move could escalate the situation, and he didn't want to give them an excuse to attack. An escort led the delegation through the city streets, which were eerily empty. No civilians wandered about, no sounds of life filled the air. It was as if the entire planet had been evacuated ahead of their arrival. The thought sent another wave of unease through Jack. What were the Zorathians hiding? Finally, they arrived at the council chamber, a massive dome-shaped structure at the heart of the city. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, and the walls shimmered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they moved. At the center of the room stood the Zorathian ambassador, a figure draped in flowing robes that sparkled like starlight. His voice echoed throughout the chamber as he addressed the humans. "Welcome," he said, his tone devoid of warmth. "You are here because we wish to discuss matters of great importance, matters that concern the future of your species and ours." Laura stepped forward, her expression calm but determined. "Thank you for allowing us to speak with you," she began. "We come in peace, hoping to find common ground and ensure mutual prosperity for both our peoples." The ambassador tilted his head slightly, studying her with those unnerving eyes. Then, without warning, a holographic display flickered to life above them. Images appeared, showing scenes of destruction, human ships attacking Zorathian vessels, explosions ripping through space, screams of dying aliens echoing through the void. Jack's stomach dropped as he realized what they were being accused of. "This is evidence of your aggression," the ambassador declared, his voice cutting like a blade. "Your kind has violated our borders, destroyed our outposts, and spilled innocent blood. You claim to seek peace, yet your actions tell a different story." Laura's face paled, but she quickly composed herself. "These accusations are false," she said firmly. "We did not commit these acts. Someone is trying to frame us." The ambassador's gaze hardened. "Then prove it. Until you do, we have no choice but to declare war upon your species. Prepare yourselves, humans. The galaxy will tremble under the weight of our justice." With that, the meeting ended abruptly. Guards ushered the delegation back to their shuttle, leaving no room for further discussion. As they lifted off from Xylo 7, Jack stared out the window at the glowing planet below. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity now faced its greatest trial yet. War loomed on the horizon, and Jack knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Part 2. The shuttle carrying the human delegation hurtled through space, its engines humming softly as it left the eerie glow of Xylo 7 behind. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. No one spoke. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on them all, suffocating any attempt at conversation. Laura Bennett sat rigid in her seat, staring blankly at the tablet in her lap. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through the holographic images the Zorathians had shown them. Images that accused humanity of atrocities they swore they hadn't committed. Commander Jack Harper leaned back against the wall, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His jaw was clenched so hard it ached, and his mind raced with questions. Who could have staged those attacks? Why would anyone want to frame humanity for something so monstrous? And most importantly, how were they going to prove their innocence before the galaxy turned against them? Finally, Laura broke the silence. This can't be real," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at Jack, her green eyes filled with desperation. We didn't do this. You know we didn't. Jack nodded slowly, though doubt gnawed at him. He trusted Laura completely, but the evidence had been damning. The footage showed ships bearing unmistakable human insignias, firing upon defenseless Zorathian vessels. Explosions lit up the void of space, followed by cries of pain and panic from alien voices. It was horrifying and convincing. If he hadn't known better, he might have believed it himself. We need to find out who's behind this, Jack said firmly, pushing away from the wall. If we don't clear our names fast, the Zorathians won't stop until every last one of us is gone. Laura nodded, her expression grim. But where do we even start? That footage looked genuine. Whoever did this went to great lengths to make sure it couldn't be traced back to them. Jack frowned, thinking hard. There was something about the video that bothered him, though he couldn't put his finger on it. Something felt off. The angles of the shots, the way the explosions rippled outward, all seemed too perfect, almost artificial. He made a mental note to review the footage more closely once they returned to the Vanguard. Maybe there was a clue hidden in the details. Something only someone trained to notice inconsistencies would catch. When the shuttle docked with the flagship, the group hurried to the command center. President Daniel Hayes was already waiting for them, his face lined with worry as he listened to their report. Behind him stood General Ryan Cole, arms folded and scowling darkly. The tension between diplomacy and military action crackled in the air like static electricity. Tell me everything, Hayes said, his voice steady, but tinged with urgency. What happened down there? Laura stepped forward, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She recounted the events of the meeting, describing the accusations and the holographic evidence. When she finished, the room fell silent. Everyone processed the gravity of the situation, each lost in their own thoughts. This is bad, Cole muttered, breaking the quiet. Real bad. They've got the whole galaxy watching now. If we don't act soon, other species will side with the Zorathians. We'll be outnumbered before we even get a chance to fight back. Hayes shot him a sharp look. And what exactly are you suggesting, General? That we declare war on the Zorathians, without proof they're lying, without knowing who's really behind this? Cole shrugged, unapologetic. I'm saying we prepare for the worst. Whether we like it or not, war is coming. We can either sit around hoping for miracles, or get ready to defend ourselves. Hayes sighed, rubbing his temples. He turned to Jack. Commander, I need your opinion. Do you think the Zorathians are telling the truth? Or is this some kind of trap? Jack hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Sir, I don't trust them. Not for a second. But I also don't believe we attacked them. Someone set us up, and I intend to find out who. Hayes nodded approvingly. Good. Start digging into that footage. Find anything unusual, anything at all. In the meantime, we'll begin mobilizing the fleet, just in case. As the meeting adjourned, Jack retreated to his quarters, determined to uncover the truth. He loaded the holographic footage onto his personal terminal and began analyzing it, frame by frame. Hours passed as he pored over every detail, searching for flaws or inconsistencies. At first, nothing stood out. The ships, the insignias, the explosions, said all looked authentic. Then, late into the night, Jack spotted something, a faint flicker. In the background of one of the shots, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. It was a distortion, almost like a glitch in the recording. He zoomed in, his heart pounding. Could it be? Was this the key to proving humanity's innocence? Before he could investigate further, an alarm blared throughout the ship, jolting him out of his concentration. Red lights flashed overhead as the intercom crackled to life. All hands to battle stations. Repeat, all hands to battle stations. Jack sprang to his feet and rushed to the bridge. The crew was already scrambling, their movements frantic but focused. On the main view screen, a massive Zorathian fleet loomed in the distance, its ships glinting menacingly in the starlight. They came sooner than expected, Hayes said grimly, standing beside Jack. Looks like diplomacy is officially off the table. Jack clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. The Zorathians hadn't wasted any time. They'd declared war and immediately launched an attack, leaving humanity no room to maneuver. This wasn't just about justice, it was about survival orders. Sir? Jack asked, his voice tight. Hayes hesitated for a moment, then straightened his shoulders. Defend yourselves. Show them we won't go down without a fight. The battle erupted with terrifying speed. Zorathian ships unleashed barrages of energy weapons, their beams slicing through space like knives. The vanguard shuddered under the assault, its shields holding for now. Jack barked commands to the crew, coordinating defensive maneuvers, while trying to keep morale high. Around him, officers worked tirelessly, their faces pale but resolute. Amid the chaos, Jack caught sight of Laura on the bridge. She wasn't supposed to be there. Civilians were meant to stay in safe zones during combat, but here she was, gripping the railing with white-knuckled hands, her eyes wide with fear yet determined. Jack wanted to tell her to leave, to get somewhere safe, but he knew she wouldn't listen. Besides, part of him was glad she was here. Her presence reminded him why they were fighting, not just for survival, but for the future of humanity. The battle raged on, each passing minute feeling like an eternity. The vanguard took hit after hit, its shields weakening with every strike. Casualties mounted, and the mood aboard the ship grew darker. Jack knew they couldn't hold out forever. They needed reinforcements or a miracle. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a squadron of human fighters arrived, led by Lieutenant Alex Rivera. With precision and daring, they swooped in, targeting the Zorathian ship's weak points and forcing them to retreat. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the enemy fleet pulled back, disappearing into the depths of space. For a brief moment, relief washed over Jack. They'd survived, but the victory was hollow. The Zorathians had struck first, and they would strike again. This was only the beginning. As the crew began repairs and tended to the wounded, Jack returned to his quarters. He reopened the holographic footage, his mind racing. That flicker he'd noticed earlier, it wasn't just a glitch. It was evidence of tampering. Someone had edited the video to frame humanity for crimes they hadn't committed. Now, more than ever, finding the truth was critical. Jack leaned back in his chair, exhaustion tugging at his eyelids. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was on the brink of annihilation. But he refused to give up. Somewhere out there, someone was pulling the strings, manipulating both sides into conflict, and Jack Harper intended to find them before it was too late. Part 3. The aftermath of the battle left the vanguard battered and bruised, its corridors filled with the hum of repair drones and the low murmur of weary voices. The ship had survived, but it carried the scars of war-scorched hull plating, flickering lights, and the somber faces of those who had lost friends in the fight. Jack Harper stood on the bridge, staring at the empty void where the Zorathian fleet had disappeared. His hands were clasped tightly behind his back, his knuckles white from the pressure. For now, they were safe, but he knew it wouldn't last. The Zorathians would regroup, and when they returned, they'd come with even greater force. President Daniel Hayes entered the bridge, his steps heavy with the weight of leadership. He looked older than he had just days ago, the lines on his face deeper, his shoulders slumped under an invisible burden. "Report," he said quietly, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. Jack turned to face him. "Casualties are high, sir. We've lost nearly 30% of our fighters, and the Vanguard itself is running on backup systems, but we held them off for now." Hayes nodded, though his expression remained grim. "And what about the rest of the fleet? Are they ready?" "They're mobilizing as we speak," Jack replied. General Cole has ordered all available ships to converge on our position. It's going to take time, though. The Zorathians have us outnumbered and outgunned. Hayes sighed, rubbing his temples. This isn't how it was supposed to go. We came here for peace, not war. Jack didn't respond. He shared the president's frustration, but there was no point dwelling on what could have been. What mattered now was preparing for what was coming next. Sir, he said after a moment, there's something else. I've been analyzing that footage the Zorathians showed us. There's evidence of tampering. Someone edited it to make it look like we attacked them. Hayes's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? I'm almost certain, Jack said. It's subtle, but it's there. Whoever did this went to great lengths to frame us. They wanted this war. Hayes straightened, his demeanor shifting from weariness to determination. Then we need to find out who it is, and fast. If we can expose the truth, maybe we can turn the tide. Maybe we can still avoid total war. Jack nodded. I'll keep digging into the footage. In the meantime, we need to prepare for another attack. The Zorathians won't wait long. Back on Earth, the news of the failed negotiations and subsequent battle spread like wildfire. Panic gripped the population as images of burning ships and devastated colonies flooded the media. People crowded into streets, shouting demands for answers or vengeance. Some called for immediate retaliation against the Zorathians, while others pleaded for restraint, arguing that humanity couldn't afford to escalate the conflict without proof of guilt. In the United Nations Assembly Hall, delegates from every corner of human space gathered to address the crisis. President Hayes stood at the podium, his presence commanding despite the fatigue etched into his features. Behind him, massive screens displayed live feeds of the damaged Vanguard and the smoldering ruins of colonies hit by Zorathian raids. The room was silent, save for the occasional cough or shuffle of feet. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayes began, his voice strong and clear. Today marks one of the darkest chapters in human history. We sought peace with the Zorathians only to be met with betrayal and violence. They accuse us of crimes we did not commit, and they have declared war upon us. But let me be clear, we did not start this fight. We will defend ourselves with everything we have, but we will not become monsters in the process. The crowd erupted into applause, but Hayes raised a hand to silence them. However, we must also seek the truth. Evidence suggests that someone, within our own ranks or perhaps outside of it, has manipulated events to provoke this war. Until we uncover who is responsible, we cannot truly claim victory, no matter how many battles we win. As Hayes spoke, Megan Carter listened intently from her lab deep beneath the surface of Earth. Megan was one of humanity's brightest engineers, a prodigy whose inventions had revolutionized space travel and warfare. Everything. Her latest project, codenamed Titan, was a super weapon designed to level entire fleets in seconds. It was controversial, dangerous, and possibly humanity's only hope of standing toe-to-toe with the Zorathians. Megan stared at the blueprints sprawled across her desk, her mind racing. She hated the idea of using Titan. It was a weapon of last resort, built for annihilation rather than defense, but she knew the stakes. If humanity didn't act decisively, the Zorathians would crush them. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that deploying Titan might do more harm than good. Its technology was experimental, untested in real combat. Worse, if the Zorathians captured it, they could reverse engineer it and use it against humanity. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. "Come in," she called, turning to see General Ryan Cole step inside. His uniform was immaculate, but his face was haggard, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "Megan," he said without preamble, "we need Titan operational, now." Megan frowned. "General, you know as well as I do that rushing this could be catastrophic. The weapon isn't ready. If we deploy it prematurely, we risk losing control or worse, giving the Zorathians access to our tech. Cole crossed the room in 3 strides, leaning over her desk. Do you think I don't know that? But we're out of options. The Zorathians are tearing us apart piece by piece. If we don't hit them hard and soon, they'll wipe us out entirely. Megan hesitated, torn between her principles and the reality of the situation. Finally, she nodded. All right, I'll expedite the final tests. But I'm telling you, General, this is a gamble. If something goes wrong, it's on your head. Cole didn't flinch. Understood. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, Lieutenant Alex Rivera sat alone in the cockpit of his fighter, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The young pilot had earned a reputation for bravery during the skirmish with the Zorathians, leading his squadron with skill and precision that saved countless lives. But the cost of that victory weighed heavily on him. He'd watched friends die, their ships exploding in bursts of light before vanishing forever. The memory haunted him, replaying over and over in his mind. A soft chime pulled him from his thoughts. It was a message from command, requesting his presence aboard the Vanguard. Alex sighed, knowing what it meant. They wanted him to lead another mission, likely one even more dangerous than the last. Part of him resented being thrust into the role of hero, but another part understood the necessity. Someone had to step up, someone had to fight. When Alex arrived on the Vanguard, he found Jack Harper waiting for him in the briefing room. The commander looked tired, his usual confidence replaced by a grim determination. "Lieutenant," Jack said, gesturing for Alex to sit, "we need you." Alex nodded, bracing himself for whatever came next. "What's the mission?" Jack leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "We've identified a Zorathian supply line near the edge of explored space. If we can disrupt it, we might buy ourselves some time to regroup, but it won't be easy. Their defenses are tight, and they'll be expecting us." Alex swallowed hard. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Too many," Jack admitted. "But we're not sending a fleet. Just you and a small team. Hit-and-run tactics. Get in, cause chaos, and get out before they can respond." Alex felt a knot form in his stomach. This wasn't just risky, it was suicidal. But he didn't argue. Instead, he gave a curt nod. "When do we leave?" "First thing tomorrow," Jack said. "Get some rest while you can." As Alex left the briefing room, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission might be his last. But fear wasn't an option, not anymore. Humanity was counting on him, whether he liked it or not. That night, aboard the Vanguard, Jack sat alone in his quarters, reviewing the holographic footage once again. He zoomed in on the faint flicker he'd noticed earlier, studying it from every angle. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it confirmed his suspicions. The video had been altered. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to frame humanity for the attacks on the Zorathians. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. Who had the means and motive to orchestrate such a deception? Was it rogue elements within Earth's government, as he suspected? Or was it something bigger, something beyond human comprehension? Whoever it was, they were playing a dangerous game, one that threatened to destroy billions of lives. As he worked, Jack felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The galaxy was trembling, caught in the grip of a war that neither side fully understood. But amidst the chaos, one thing was clear: humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. And Jack Harper intended to make sure of it. Part 4. The small squadron of human fighters emerged from hyperspace, near the edge of explored space, their engines glowing faintly against the dark backdrop of the void. Lieutenant Alex Rivera sat in the cockpit of his lead ship, his hands steady on the controls, despite the knot of tension in his stomach. Behind him, 5 other pilots formed a tight formation, their ship's sleek hulls glinting in the dim light of a distant star. This was the mission Jack Harper had entrusted to him. A chance to strike back at the Zorathians, to disrupt their supply lines and buy humanity some much-needed time. "All right, team," Alex said over the comms, his voice calm but firm. "Remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they can react. No heroics. We're here to do a job, not start a war." The pilots acknowledged with quick affirmations, their voices tinged with nerves, but resolute. They were volunteers, every one of them, and they knew the risks. The Zords weren't just powerful, they were ruthless. If caught, there would be no mercy. But none of them hesitated. Humanity was counting on them. As they approached the target, a massive convoy of supply ships, flanked by several Zorthian cruisers, Alex felt his heart pound faster. The enemy vessels loomed large in his view screen, their crystalline structures shimmering like jagged icebergs. It was beautiful in a strange, alien way, but Alex pushed the thought aside. There was no room for admiration now, only action. "Lock weapons," he ordered. "Stay close and follow my lead." The squadron moved as one, slipping silently into position behind an asteroid field that concealed their approach. From this vantage point, they could see the Zorothian convoy clearly. Dozens of cargo ships floated in precise rows, guarded by heavily armed escorts. It was a tempting target, but also a dangerous one. One wrong move, and they'd be surrounded. Alex took a deep breath, steadying himself. "On my mark," he whispered. Then, after a brief pause, "Mark." The human fighters erupted from their hiding spot, streaking toward the convoy like arrows fired from a bow. Their first salvo struck true, energy beams slicing through the shields of two Zorothian cruisers. Explosions lit up the darkness as chunks of debris spiraled into space. The convoy scrambled to respond, but Alex's team was already weaving through the chaos, firing relentlessly. "Keep moving," Alex shouted, dodging a retaliatory blast from one of the cruisers. "Don't let them pin you down." His words proved prophetic moments later, when a swarm of Zorthian fighters launched from the escort ships, racing to intercept the humans. Alex gritted his teeth as he pulled his ship into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma bolts. Around him, his teammates executed daring maneuvers, their training paying off as they held their own against superior numbers. But the odds were still stacked against them. For every Zorthian fighter they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Alex's sensors blared warnings as enemy fire grazed his ship, leaving scorch marks along the hull. He glanced at his status display. The damage wasn't critical yet, but it wouldn't take much more to cripple him. "Lieutenant, we've got company," came a voice over the comms. It was Sarah Monroe, one of the squadron's most skilled pilots. Her ship darted past Alex's, unleashing a volley of missiles that obliterated a cluster of incoming fighters. "They're closing in fast." Alex nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "Fall back to the extraction point. We've done enough damage here." The team obeyed without question, breaking away from the fray and accelerating toward the predetermined rendezvous. Behind them, the Zorothian convoy burned, its cargo ships crippled or destroyed. Smoke and flames billowed into the vacuum of space, a grim testament to the success of their mission. But the cost had been high. Two of the human fighters were missing, their pilots presumed dead. Alex clenched his jaw, forcing himself not to dwell on the loss. There would be time to grieve later, if they made it back alive. Back aboard the Vanguard, Commander Jack Harper watched the battle unfold on the main view screen, his expression unreadable. The feed from Alex's fighter showed flashes of chaos, explosions, streaks of light, and the relentless pursuit of enemy ships. Jack's fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Every second felt like an eternity. "They're pulling back," announced one of the bridge officers, breaking the tense silence. "The remaining fighters are heading for the extraction point." Jack exhaled slowly, relief washing over him but only briefly. The mission had succeeded, yes, but at a steep price. 2 pilots lost, 2 families shattered, and for what? A temporary disruption in the Zorathian supply chain. It wasn't nearly enough to turn the tide of the war. When Alex's battered squadron finally docked with the vanguard, Jack met them in the hangar bay. The surviving pilots climbed out of their ships, their faces pale and streaked with sweat. Some leaned against the walls for support, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. Others simply stared at the floor, too drained to speak. Alex stepped forward, his helmet tucked under one arm. His uniform was singed, and a fresh cut above his eyebrow dripped blood onto his cheek. He looked at Jack, his eyes hollow but determined. "Mission accomplished, sir. The convoy is neutralized." Jack nodded, his voice soft but filled with gratitude. "Good work, Lieutenant. You all did good work." Alex didn't respond. Instead, he turned to look at the empty spaces where his fallen comrades should have been. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, Jack thought he might break down. But then Alex straightened, squaring his shoulders as if steeling himself for whatever came next. "We'll need to debrief," Jack said gently. "But first, get yourselves checked out in the med bay. You've earned it." Later that evening, Jack found himself in the mess hall, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The ship was quiet now, the adrenaline of battle giving way to the somber reality of loss. Crew members moved about in hushed tones, their faces etched with fatigue and sorrow. War was taking its toll not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of everyone aboard. Laura Bennett joined him at the table, sliding a tray of food in front of her before sitting down. She looked as tired as he felt, her usually vibrant green eyes dulled by the weight of recent events. "How are they holding up?" she asked quietly. Jack shrugged, as well as can be expected. "They're soldiers. They know the risks. Doesn't make it any easier, though." Laura nodded, picking at her food without much appetite. "Do you think it's worth it? All this destruction? Is it really going to change anything?" Jack sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I don't know, Laura. Sometimes it feels like we're just spinning our wheels, fighting battles we can't win. But if we give up, then what's left? The Zorathians won't show us mercy. We have to keep pushing, keep fighting, until we find a way to end this." Laura studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "You believe that, don't you? That there's still hope for peace?" "I have to," Jack admitted. "If I didn't, I don't think I could keep going." The conversation drifted into silence, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Eventually, Laura spoke again. "What? About the footage? Did you find anything else?" Jack nodded, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a data chip. "Yeah. I managed to isolate the distortion I noticed earlier. It's definitely tampered footage. Whoever edited it used advanced software stuff we haven't seen before. But there's something else. Fragments of metadata embedded in the file suggest it originated from inside human-controlled space." Laura's eyes widened. "You mean someone on our side is responsible for framing us?" "It looks that way," Jack said grimly. "Whoever it is, they're playing a dangerous game, and they're not working alone. Someone gave them access to classified information, and probably resources too." Laura frowned, her mind racing. "If we expose them, it could shift the balance. The Zorathians might call off the war once they realize they've been manipulated." "Maybe," Jack said cautiously. "Or it could make things worse. If the Zorathians think we're trying to deceive them again, they'll come at us harder than ever. We need proof, solid, undeniable proof, before we go public." Laura nodded, understanding the stakes. "Then, we keep digging. Together." As the days passed, the vanguard continued its journey deeper into contested territory, searching for answers while preparing for the inevitable next clash with the Zorathians. Morale remained low, but there was a flicker of hope among the crew, a belief that perhaps, just maybe, the truth could still save them. Jack spent every spare moment analyzing the footage, piecing together clues that might lead to the mastermind behind the deception. Meanwhile, Laura worked tirelessly to rally support for humanity's cause, reaching out to sympathetic alien species and urging them to remain neutral in the conflict. For now, the galaxy trembled under the shadow of war, but within the hearts of those who refused to give up, a spark of defiance burned brightly. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. This time would be no different. Part 5. The Vanguard drifted through the silent expanse of space, its engines humming softly as it orbited a desolate moon. The crew moved about their duties with quiet determination, but the air was thick with tension. Everyone knew the stakes were higher than ever. The war with the Zorothians showed no signs of slowing down, and every day brought fresh reports of attacks on human colonies and supply lines. Yet amidst the chaos, Jack Harper and Laura Bennett focused on uncovering the truth behind the manipulated footage that had ignited the conflict. Jack sat in his quarters, hunched over his terminal, his eyes scanning line after line of code. The distortion in the holographic video was more complex than he'd initially realized. Whoever had tampered with it wasn't just skilled, they were brilliant. The metadata fragments he'd extracted pointed to a source within human-controlled space, but narrowing it down further was proving difficult. Each clue seemed to lead to a dead end, another layer of encryption or obfuscation designed to throw him off track. Laura entered without knocking, carrying a datapad filled with notes. "Anything new?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and frustration. Jack leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Not much. Whoever did this covered their tracks well, but I'm close, I can feel it." Laura set the datapad on the desk and pulled up a chair beside him. "I've been going over communications logs from the past few months. There are anomalous encrypted messages sent from high-ranking officials to unknown recipients. They match the timestamps of the attacks on the Zorathian outposts." Jack raised an eyebrow. "High-ranking officials? Like who?" Laura hesitated, then tapped the screen to bring up a list of names. "These are the ones I've flagged so far. Most of them are military personnel, but there are a few from civilian leadership too." Jack scanned the list, his jaw tightening when he recognized one name in particular: Senator Robert Hargrove. Hargrove was a powerful figure in Earth's government, known for his hawkish stance on alien relations. He had openly criticized President Hayes' decision to pursue peace with the Zorothians, arguing that humanity should take a more aggressive approach. Could he be involved? "Hargrove," Jack muttered. "He's always pushed for war, but framing us for something like this, that's next-level treachery." Laura nodded grimly. "If he is involved, we'll need concrete evidence before we accuse him. Otherwise, he'll just deny everything and turn it around on us." Jack agreed. "We need someone who can dig deeper into his activities without raising suspicion. Someone discreet." As if on cue, a chime sounded at the door. Jack called for whoever it was to enter, and Ethan Blake stepped inside. Ethan was an intelligence operative, a man whose job was to uncover secrets and navigate the murky waters of political intrigue. His sharp features and piercing blue eyes made him look perpetually suspicious, but his skills were unmatched. "You rang," Ethan said with a faint smirk, though his tone was serious. Jack gestured for him to sit. "We think we might have a lead on who's behind the fake footage. We need you to investigate Senator Hargrove." Carefully, Ethan's expression darkened. "Hargrove? That's bold, even for him. What makes you think he's dirty?" Laura handed him the datapad. "Look at these communications. They're encrypted, but the timing matches the attacks, and some of them came directly from his office." Ethan scrolled through the data, his brow furrowing. "This is interesting. If he's working with someone outside the government, they're using advanced tech to cover their tracks. I'll see what I can find, but it won't be easy. Hargrove has friends in high places." "Just get us proof," Jack said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Ethan wasted no time getting to work. Using his network of informants and cutting-edge decryption tools, he began piecing together the puzzle. It didn't take long for him to uncover something alarming. Hargrove wasn't acting alone. Hidden among the encrypted messages were references to a shadowy organization, known only as the Syndicate. Little was known about them, but whispers suggested they were a cabal of wealthy elites and rogue military officers who sought to control humanity's expansion into the galaxy and profit from the chaos that followed. Ethan traced the trail further, discovering that the Syndicate had secretly funded private militias and covert operations along the border with Zorathian space. Their goal was clear: provoke the Zorathians into war, destabilize the region, and seize control of valuable resources hidden in contested territories. By framing humanity for the initial attacks, they ensured that neither side would back down once the fighting began. But the most shocking revelation came when Ethan uncovered a recording of a clandestine meeting between Hargrove and a representative of the Syndicate. In the audio file, Hargrove admitted to orchestrating the false accusations against humanity, boasting that the war would solidify his power and allow the Syndicate to reshape the galaxy according to their vision. "This is it," Ethan murmured to himself as he listened to the recording. "This is the smoking gun." Back aboard the Vanguard, Jack and Laura met with Ethan in a secure briefing room. The walls were lined with soundproof panels, ensuring their conversation couldn't be overheard. Ethan played the recording for them, his face grim as Hargrove's. Smug voice filled the room. "We'll make them believe we're the victims," Hargrove said on the tape. "By the time anyone realizes the truth, it'll be too late. Humanity will rally behind us, and the galaxy will bow to our will." When the recording ended, silence hung heavy in the air. Laura looked pale, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of the table. "This changes everything," she whispered. "If we expose this, it could end the war," Jack finished for her. "But it could also tear humanity apart. People won't trust their leaders anymore if they find out they've been betrayed like this." Ethan nodded. "And if Hargrove and the Syndicate catch wind of what we're doing, they'll come after us, hard." Laura took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Then we move quickly, quietly. We gather all the evidence we can and present it to President Hayes. He needs to know the truth." Jack stood, his resolve hardening. "Agreed. Let's get to work." Over the next several days, the trio worked tirelessly to compile their findings. They gathered decrypted messages, financial records linking Hargrove to the Syndicate, and additional recordings implicating other conspirators. Every piece of evidence strengthened their case, but it also increased the danger. Shadows seemed to linger longer in the corridors of the Vanguard, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One evening, as Jack reviewed the final batch of documents, an urgent message flashed across his terminal. It was from Ethan, marked priority. Jack opened it immediately, his heart sinking as he read the contents. "They know," the message read. "Someone tipped them off. I'm burning my cover now. Get the evidence to Hayes ASAP." Before Jack could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, and the intercom crackled to life. "Intruder alert. All personnel report to defensive stations." Jack grabbed his weapon and bolted from his quarters, heading straight for the command center. When he arrived, chaos reigned. Crew members scrambled to secure the ship as reports flooded in. Unidentified assailants had boarded the Vanguard. Their objective was unknown, but Jack had a sinking feeling they were after the evidence. "Seal off all access points to the command center," Jack barked, taking charge. "And locate Ethan Blake. He's in trouble." Moments later, Ethan staggered into the room, clutching a bleeding wound on his arm. "They found me," he gasped. "Had to fight my way here. They're looking for the data." Jack helped him to a chair and turned to Laura. "Get everything onto a secure drive. We're not letting them take it." Laura nodded, her hands flying over the controls as she transferred the files. Outside, the sounds of combat grew louder. Gunfire echoed through the halls. and shouts of pain mingled with the hum of energy weapons. Finally, Laura held up a small, encrypted drive. "It's done. Everything's here." Jack took the drive and tucked it into a hidden compartment in his uniform. "Good. Now, let's get to the escape pods. If they overrun the ship, we can't risk losing this." The group moved quickly, navigating through maintenance tunnels to avoid the fighting. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance crew members holding off the intruders with makeshift barricades. Jack shouted encouragement as they passed, urging everyone to hold on just a little longer. When they reached the escape pod bay, they found it swarming with enemy soldiers. Jack cursed under his breath, raising his weapon. "Stay behind me," he ordered, stepping forward. The ensuing firefight was intense, but Jack's training kicked in. He fired methodically, each shot finding its mark. Laura and Ethan provided, covering fire, their teamwork flawless despite the chaos. One by downed, the intruders fell until the path to the pods was clear. "Go!" Jack shouted, ushering Laura and Ethan inside. As the pod launched, he glanced back at the Vanguard, its hull scarred from battle. Somewhere aboard, the traitors were still searching for the evidence, but they wouldn't find it. Not this time. As the pod hurtled toward Earth, Jack allowed himself a moment of relief. They had the proof they needed to expose the conspiracy. Now, all that remained was delivering it to President Hayes and hoping it would be enough to save humanity from itself.